Hey there, thank you so much for joining me for this week's video. This is Katie Groven with dancerfitness.com, and today we're talking about easy swaps you can make from the exercises you may be currently doing with your competitive dancers to exercises that are going to be more specific and more intentional for your dancers, and it's going to help mimic what they need to do on the floor. And this is important because your dancers are a very specific type of athlete, and if they're doing any type of cross training, it should really benefit the goals they have in their dancing, like better balance, better power, strengthening their weaker side. Our dancers get really injury prone when we're only doing the same choreography on the same side of their body. That side that's getting used all the time, we run into overuse injuries. Then there's the side of their body that they're not using. Maybe they're not ever supporting themselves just on the right side because we're always turning to the right, supporting ourselves on the left. So they end up with those overuse injuries, or they end up not using that side of the body, and then when we call on that side of the body, they end up getting hurt. So when we're doing strength training, we want to make sure that we're focusing on the goals that our dancers do have, like I mentioned, that better balance, the strength on each individual side, and of course endurance. And a lot of times we run in a circle, we do jumping jacks, and yes, we heat our dancers' bodies up, but are we actually really intentionally warming up the body and preparing it for turning and jumping and going across the floor and partner work? So we're going to talk about some easy swaps you can start doing right now in your practices. The first concept and exercise I want to talk about are dynamic warm-ups. When I was dancing, we would run around the school, stretch, and then just get into our dancing, or we would do some jumping jacks. And like I mentioned previously, of course that's making the body hot, but what are you doing to actually start engaging your dancer's core and their glutes and their ankles, all areas that need to be firing correctly to get on with your practices? And then it's going to actually save you time later when it comes to cleaning your routines and executing your skills, because when your dancers are warmed up with more intention, they're going to dance with more control, dance with more confidence, which means their movements are going to be stronger and sharper, so that you don't have to be cleaning and counting and repeating everything over and over again. So some of my favorite ways to do a dynamic warm-up, one is called an inchworm. Here you have your dancers, legs are hip distance apart, you have them up into a high releve, walk themselves out into a plank, reach an arm, and then walk themselves back in. 8 to 10 of these, and then stretch. That's a great place to start. If you have this space and you can distance your dancers to go across the floor, I like to have them do a duck walk. Side of the room, nice low squat. Have them walk across the floor. When they get halfway across the floor, have them do 5 squats. And while they're squatting, pull that belly button in nice and tight. After those 5, walk across the floor again. If you want to get the arms involved, you can have them punch while they're going across the floor, because ideally a dynamic warm-up not only prepares the body for what it needs to do in class, but it involves everything head to toe. So that's your dynamic warm-up. Duck walks, duck walk with a punch, and an inchworm. I'm sure you know the importance of core for your dancers. It creates balance and stability. Unfortunately though, you may not have the variety of core exercises, so what you're used to doing are just simply crunches. But most of the time, your dancers are grabbing their head and they're cranking, or you might be doing a lot of twisting motions, trying to get those obliques. But in reality, when we're doing those core exercises and we're crunching, we're cranking on the neck, or we're twisting, we're actually building the abdominal wall outward, because it's very, very hard for someone to execute those movements while also keeping the belly button pulled in. And like we said, every time we're trying to do an exercise with dancers, we are trying to mimic what they need to do on the floor. When your dancers are dancing, we don't want ribcage open and abs splayed. We want everything pulled in. So one of my favorite exercises to do is a dead bug. You'll have your dancers pull their knees into their chest, extend one arm and one leg, hold for a beat, pull it back in. 10 of these on each leg is a good place to start. If your dancers cannot extend this leg without their low back coming off the ground, have them practice just tapping their toes. Another great core exercise to introduce your dancers is simply a plank. And when you're doing a plank correctly, even your most advanced dancers will be challenged. You can have your dancers planking on their hands. They can also drop to their elbows, or they can drop to their knees as long as their booty is flat and they're not in a tabletop position. Have them shift forward so their elbows and their shoulders are in line. When you have your dancers planking, make sure that they are pulling their shoulders back, they're squeezing their butt, and they're squeezing their quads. This is an active plank. If they're not engaging their core or their legs, they're gonna sink. So remind them to squeeze their butt, press their shoulders down, and hold that plank. I like to challenge my dancers. I like to have them hold that plank for 30 seconds and then add 15 or 10 seconds every time you see them to make that just a little bit harder. So your dancer's lower body, these are some of the most important muscles that we're using to get off the floor. This is their powerhouse, their glute muscles. That's a really good powerhouse for your dancers. And I see a lot of people doing lunges. Lunges are a fantastic workout, but unfortunately when you have a room full of dancers and you guys are just doing lunges across the floor, or maybe you're standing in place doing lunges, what happens with form is dancers step, their knee goes over their toe, their heel comes up, and no one's there to really give them the corrections they need. You can't be everywhere all at once. So instead of having your dancers lunging, which kind of gets a little bit noodly, gets a little bit unstable, I like to have dancers focus exclusively on the glutes with a hip bridge. Have your dancers lay on their back. Legs are hip distance apart, hands next to your glutes. Spread the toes out, press into the floor, lift and hold, and down. Lift and down. 20 to 25 of these. If your dancers are a little bit more advanced, or perhaps you're spending most of your season with your left leg as a supporting leg, give your right side a little bit of a challenge by lifting the left leg off the floor and squeezing with one leg. Another great lower body exercise that actually is going to save you time when you're practicing your turns is a boulder squat. Spread out your toes, have your dancers come up into a passe, cross the leg behind, let the knees kiss, deep plie, let the toe just kiss the floor, and suck right up into that passe. Cross it, and up. Pressing the whole foot into the floor is going to help work those glutes back here. Your glutes, like I mentioned, are your body's powerhouse. They're small, but they are mighty. I like to do 8 to 12 of these on each side. The other reason why I love this exercise is when we talk about lower body, we can't forget about those ankles. They get forgotten a lot. They like to put their head down and get the work done, but when we do this exercise, when we spread our toes out, we're now activating the foot, we're working the ankles. So that's gonna help with higher releve, holding your releve, plus rolling through the foot and lots of power in your jumps and leaps. And finally, let's talk about upper body. This seems to get skipped a lot because we focus so much on the lower body, because when we talk about dancing, we talk about releve and jumping and balancing, and so we think about core and lower body. Upper body gets forgotten about. But think about this, when your dancers lose their turn timing, a lot of times it's because their arms are kind of noodly, or maybe you do kick, or maybe you do palm, where arm strength is super, super important. And a lot of that arm strength comes from the back. So let's talk about a few exercises you can be doing with your dancers, if you're not doing any at all, to strengthen the back and to strengthen the arms. Now, I like to use an athletic band for this. If you don't have one, that's okay, you don't need one. But here's my favorite exercise. Band goes around your wrists, arms come out to the front, shoulders go up, press them down. Make sure the rib cage is down, and simply pull the band apart 20 to 25 times. Think about going out, 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 as opposed to in, out. We don't want the band to get wrinkly. Pull, 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 pull. Now we're working the back. If you don't have a band, that's fine, same thing. Shoulders go up, shoulders go down, and pull, 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 pull. Then, if you want to work the biceps and the triceps, which will help keep those elbows nice and lifted, with the band, elbows are glued to your side, thumbs face up, and curl. Again, 20 of these. And then for those triceps, flip it. Hand goes on the back of your head, and push. You don't need a band for that. You can hold water bottles. Hold a nice weighted water bottle. One end in here, one end in the other. And then to go above your head, elbows stay high, and lift. Also, just doing that with a lot of resistance and pretending I'm in Jello, that also makes that feel really effective. So there you have it. There you have 8 exercises you can be doing right now. Swap out all the old stuff, insert this new stuff, and know that when you're using these very dancer-specific exercises, you're gonna reduce injuries, increase consistency, and your dancers are going to dance with so much more confidence. Don't forget to like and subscribe this video, and I'll see you next week.